Oh, my God, it's big, so strong, so mighty. My God's plans for me goes beyond my wildest dreams. There's nothing my God cannot do. There's nothing my God cannot do. There's nothing my God cannot do.
Welcome to Wellness Issues. I'm your host, Sylvain, and we are so excited about today, and there's nothing that our God cannot do. It's a beautiful time to be alive, and when we think about all of the things that God is doing in this world today, we cannot help but to be more excited. Yes, this is Wellness Issues, where we're focusing on the health of the mind, body, and spirit, on our health, and particularly, again, as we start our new year, it's so important that we focus on being well and thinking well and having our thinking, positive thinking, and truly giving God all the glory in our minds and then also our bodies, making sure that we're walking in health and purely looking at what we're putting inside of our bodies and how we're exercising and each and every day. What are we doing when we wake up in the morning? Do we exercise in the morning? Do we run? Do we walk? Do we stretch? What are we doing with our bodies? What are we doing to allow it to do what it needs to do? Recognizing that the human body just isn't designed just to sit, and it's not designed just to be sedentary. The body really is so key that it moves, and so weightlifting and using weights are so important. That's a part of life, but aerobic exercise where we're running and jumping, it really is the key. But today we have a great guest today, and we're so excited about him. It's a major article that appeared in the New York Times, and we have an opportunity to speak to the lead researcher in an article. It was a great find in Israel, but all the way from Israel. I believe it's in Tel Aviv in Israel. We have a great researcher, and his Dr. Israel Hershkovitz, and we appreciate having him. It was a archaeological find, and when we're looking at so much, we have when we're looking at the people from Africa and people from Europe, what we find is that so many times we're looking at why are we different, and we believe that we're all the same, and we'll stand on that. We're all the same, that whether we're from Africa, whether from Europe or Asia or whatever, people are the same. But it was some great research that came out, and it showed some differences. And so what we want to do is we want to be able to speak to Dr. Hershkovitz to find out more. And so they're connecting this call from Israel right now. We do have him on the line. Dr. Hershkovitz, how are you this morning here in New Orleans, but this evening in Israel?
Good morning, New Orleans. Here is evening. I'm glad to talk to you.
Yes, it is. It's so exciting. We won't have you on long. We know it's really short, but we appreciate you coming on. And we've always looked at all people being the same and excited about that. But you had this, I read the article in the New York Times where you were quoted, and I almost fell down. I was like, tell us a little bit about this find. And I think it's Manot Cave, this find that you have.
Yes, Manot Cave is in the Upper Galilee in Israel. Not far from the Lebanese border. I think it's like less than 5 kilometers south of the Lebanese border in Israel. It's one of the largest and most beautiful prehistoric cave ever found, not just in Israel, but I think in the world in general.
Wow.
It's an amazing, large, beautiful cave, and we found out that the cave was inhabited by modern humans like around 60,000 years ago.
Wow.
And beside the thousands of stone tools found in the cave and, the animal bones, we found a human skull inside the cave.
Wow.
And the study of this skull enabled us, to add an important puzzle to the big story of human evolution.
Amazing. So the picture showed, in the Times, they had it on the website. They had the picture of the skull, the human skull, and beside it was the skull of a Neanderthal, and another side it was the skull of a modern human. And the quote that they had you saying was, "This is the bridge between people coming out of Africa and Europe." Does that explain it?
Yeah, sure. For centuries, anthropologists were looking for what they call the missing link.
Okay.
Let me just give you a very short, a brief review of human evolution. That there are two major, I would say, limestones in the story of human evolution.
Okay.
The first one started at the mid-19th century with Charles Darwin's famous book, The Origin of Species.
Okay.
That basically, connected us with the natural world and triggered the search, what was once called the search for the missing link,
Okay.
Looking for some kind of a creature that will connect us with the great apes.
Okay.
Now, the second milestone is the genetic revolution that occurred towards the end of the 20th century with the mapping of the human genomes.
Okay.
And this allows us to make several new predictions about recent human evolution, but not just on recent human evolution. Technically, it allowed us to extract DNA material from ancient bones. So based on the genetic revolutions, we came to two major conclusions, which are extremely important. The first one, was that the origin of modern humans are only 200,000 years ago.
Wow.
I mean, we are on Earth, our species, the Homo sapiens, we are on Earth only for the last 200,000 years.
Okay.
And the second predictions made based on those genetic studies was that the origin of all men is in Africa.
Okay.
Now, having those two predictions, anthropologists went back to the field and indeed found the evidence, what you call the hard evidence, the fossils in East Africa from Omo and from Herto, which proved the genetic theories to be true.
Okay.
Now, there were other two important predictions made, which we didn't have a proof that they indeed occurred. The first one was that all modern human populations, the human populations of the world as we know them today, all of them, without exception, descend from a single mother population that left Africa only 70,000 years ago.
Really?
It's quite recent. And the second prediction was that Neanderthals and modern humans interbred somewhere between 50 to 60,000 years ago in a small restricted area, probably somewhere in the Middle East. And Manot is actually what we call not the missing link, but the connecting link, because it is the first fossil that we have to show that those two predictions are true, and the first evidence that we have that connect, Africa and Europe phylogenetically, and shows that basically all modern human populations are relating to a single mother population from Africa that start migrating out of Africa only 70,000 years ago.
Wow.
So this indeed is the first skull to show it, and this is why it is so exciting.
I can see, literally it is only 70,000 years ago, which is nothing in evolutionary time, it would seem to be. And go ahead.
You are right. You are right. I mean, when you see the morphological variations among present human populations, you may think, this is, the origin of modern human population is probably very, very old, but it is not so. We are all related to a single mother population, coming out of Africa only 70,000 years ago, and so the genetic buildup of modern human populations is quite recent.
Okay, well, before we move on to the other questions, and I know we have short time, if we can even look at it quickly.
Oh, that's okay. Take your time.
Okay, we appreciate that. Well, our original thinking is like, hey, we're all the same, but genetically, for years they were thinking that, say all populations are the same, but with the mapping of the genome, they're looking at the differences in different people and people groups. So, but without looking at it, the anthropologists, from you guys' standpoint, am I right to say that looking at just genetics without the evidence from the anthropologists doesn't give us the complete picture?
That's correct. Absolutely. I mean, with the genetic studies, you can make predictions, but you need the hard evidence. I mean, we anthropologists, we bring from the field what we call the hard evidence. Every statement you make, you're making on human origin or on human populations must be based on evidence, what we call evidence-based predictions or evidence-based studies.
Right.
And our role as anthropologists is to bring the evidence from the field. Without it, we just have predictions. That's all.
Makes sense. But as
hypothesis.
Literally, yeah. And I mean, we argue that point all the time because looking at it from a health standpoint, we have to have evidence. You can't give drugs and do treatments without evidence. So that's the same thing here. But okay. So when you said the connecting link between Africa and Europe, all right, genetically then, but we're all the same people. Again, you're speaking from Israel. We're right after this commemoration of Auschwitz, where so many times people are looking at the differences in people, but in fact, even with the evidence, people are literally the same.
That's correct. People are the same. I mean, sometimes our eyes mislead us in the sense that we discriminate people by their colors, by the shape of the body, or the shape of the hair, and so on. But in fact, I mean, we are all the same.
Okay. Now, so how does this, and for those who are listening, we're speaking with Dr. Israel Hershkovitz. He's the lead researcher of a study looking at just a breakthrough study looking at people in general. But that's where we're going, even as we attempt to explain it. So how does this help us understand the connecting of people or to not be used to say that there's differences between not Israel, but Africa and Europe and Asia?
Oh, I mean, there are some differences. I mean, there are some differences. We can't ignore them. We see them, but the problem is attributing to those morphological differences some moral traits. That's the problem. I mean, in morphology, you see the slight differences between different human populations in the shape of the eyes, the hair, the color, everything. But it doesn't have anything to do with some moral traits, I would say. And this is the risk when you take a physiognomy and make connection between physiognomy and some moral or attitude traits or behavior.
Right.
This is the risk.
I guess that's the key, and that's where we're going. And so, because that information, if used improperly, because I've seen it before, where people have left, Europeans left Africa, or at least Africans left and colonized other parts of the world. And explain that. Or they left Africa and they colonized other parts of the world. How does that work?
Yeah, that's what fantastic. That's what really happened. I mean, people find it hard to believe it. I mean, some for many reasons, not only scientific reasons. People find it hard to believe that all the current populations derived from a single African population. But this is what the genetic studies are telling us. This is what the anthropological studies are telling us. All the evidence are pointing to the same direction. I mean, Africa, or if you want to be more precise, East Africa is our source.
Okay. Would there have been any during those 70,000 years? So the groups having left Africa don't become any different other than different features, not in intellect or in and you just repeating what you've already said, in behaviors and so forth, the things
correct.
that count.
That's correct.
There's no way anybody can attribute, particularly in that short time, any advancement as far as for planning or organizing and so forth.
Yes, that's a correct statement.
Okay.
I agree with you absolutely. No doubt about it.
No, yeah, and I just think that it's key. It's amazing to me, even we're speaking to you in Israel, to see the gravity of that statement of why the world should come together. And I think so. Where do we go from here in helping people to understand our togetherness? I always believe that science has to be the key in helping us all to really see that we're all one people, we're all of one group. How can science even better help us to understand that and the type of research that you're doing?
First of all, once you manage to demonstrate that we all of us derive from the same mother, or would you like the same mother population.
Right.
We are all related, to the same mother population. So in a way, we are all interrelated. Right. I mean, despite our differences in morphology, genetically, we are all interrelated to each other. We share a common ancestor. We share a common history, not just biological history, but we cultural history, economical history. And I think if people would realize that, I mean, we will have probably less problems than we have today in the world, all around the world.
I think you hit those words need to be on the billboard. They really, really can. Help us to understand now. Again, genetics and anthropology are married in a sense, and it seems like even more and more with the human genome studies. But if we're looking at the health of people and their different diseases and so forth, people, those things have some genetic relationships to it. But does that reach all the way through the anthropological area too?
Yes, I think so. I believe so.
Okay. Yeah. So as we're looking at, different people groups going into different parts of the world, and they end up with different, not just different outside features, but there are various diseases that they end up contracting. Is there any way to predict those things? Even before there's a big push, they're reading about it today, as far as for mapping the human genome. They want to get 1 million people to have precision-based medicine so they can better understand how diseases flow and to create new drugs and so forth. But to me, what they really have to understand, though, is if they look at the anthropology, do you think that you guys can help them better understand what's going on even beforehand?
Yes, sure. I mean, there is a whole branch in anthropology which is called Evolutionary Medicine, and I myself engaged with it for many years. And it basically deals with the interaction between humans and diseases for a long period of time. I mean, what anthropologists are trying to do now is, first of all, to introduce what we call the time dimension into the study of modern diseases, because the problem is that if you understand the history of the disease, the evolution of the disease, and why a certain disease is developing the way it is developed, I mean, then you can cure it more efficiently. More than that, if you better understand how the human body was built during a million of years of evolution, step by step, a structure on top of a structure, and how it was modified and remodified and remodified during millions of years. You understand the human body, the structures of the human body, then you will be able to create a better drugs for modern diseases. Without it, you are in a problem, because in the past, what physicians were used to do, they had a problem and they tried very hard to find a cure for a specific disease, but ignore the evolution of the disease. And I think this is why we didn't manage to solve many of present-day diseases.
Ah, that is so major. It sounds simple as you say it, but in every barbershop, in every beauty salon, all throughout, America, on every comment section, these basic facts are missing. That if we have to study more, we have to put more research in, that there are answers to so many of these problems. But if we start from an idea of that we can understand, and as you said, imagine all the wars that would be eliminated, all of the fighting and hate that goes on in the world.
Yes, I agree with you. I mean, the more we study, the more we know the way, not just how our body is working, but how our brain is thinking. I mean, then we will be able to solve many of current human, illness.
Human illness, yeah. Well, so again, from this standpoint, looking at these types of research that you're doing, how do we present these things to the world? I think the New York Times did a great job of setting that article in. Only part that I found it, I wish it would have done. That's why I wanted to call right away to hear the things that you've just said. But I think that we have to publicize these basic facts. They're not even in schools' textbooks. They're not in those basic things. They're not, school children aren't really understanding the basics of life and how we all come together, how we join together as one people. Else, again, we wouldn't have all this ignorance going on. Is there any branch in your field that's worldwide trying to make sure that this is getting into textbooks, that it's getting into our thinking so we can have less wars and hate in the world?
Well, honestly, I believe that education is the key.
Okay.
I mean, education is the key, and if you teach people from a very young age, that we all share a common ancestor, that the way our body is built, the way we think, the way we interact between each other, then we will have a better world in this sense. The problem is that in many places they don't teach it. I mean, either they ignore human evolution in general, and sometimes people think that there is some kind of a contradiction between science or the concept of human evolution and religious. And it is not that at all. I mean, they can both survive and flourish one next to the other and even interact and change ideas in many sense. But once human evolution or evolution in general was identified, wrongly I think, as a threat to religious, there is an ongoing fight between those two concepts, and it's a shame in many sense. It shouldn't be like that, because most religions also promote, equality between human beings and promoting the concept of peace and harmony and so on. It's just they are doing it from a totally different directions. So I think if we will encourage some kind of an interaction between the two rather than a fight between the two, then we will have a better world.
I agree with you wholeheartedly, and I think that appreciate you even being on to discuss that. But also race becomes an issue too, because particularly, I always think about Charles Darwin's book, The Survival of the Species, but I think the other title of it is The Variations in Race. But that was incorrect, because I think, Stephen Jay Gould and many others obviously have gone on to explain that you may have differences, but as you've said so well, it's not like you have one group of people that was better than the other. And again, you're speaking from Israel. I mean, literally where this entire issue becomes heightened.
That's correct. I agree with you.
Yeah,
I agree with you.
But what happened there? Just real quickly, we're about to need to close. But in evolution, this idea of evolution, how did that pop out, where evolution was used to separate races as opposed to bring them together, when in fact evolution should bring people together?
I agree with you. This is a shame. I know that this what was happening for a long period of time. I think it's out of ignorance, and people, I think, really didn't understand what Charles Darwin was saying, and intentionally misinterpreted the concept of human evolution, not understanding how evolution is working, and what is the meaning of variation among human populations and among species in general. Why it is so? Why it was misinterpreted for so many years? I don't know. I can guess. But otherwise, I agree with you. I think it's a shame, and I think it should be changed.
Well, I think this is, hey, we're right here in New Orleans, and I think that article, using that international stage that you have, to hear those words, continue to go out, as a beacon of light, pushing education, pushing togetherness, and then again having the actual physical evidence, and you have the evidence. So again, Dr. Hershkovitz, congratulations on what you're doing and what the team is doing right there in Israel. And again, I guess at this point in the world, with all the bombings and the hate and the things that are going on, where science can be used to promote peace. So we congratulate you. We appreciate you. We thank you so much. And we know the effort that you put into this, being a part here. We want to thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I will full-heartedly embrace your words.
Fantastic. All right. Well, we thank you so much. Well, for all of us here at Wellness Issues, that is Dr. Israel Hershkovitz. We appreciate, him being on, and for what we have to keep doing is pushing, loving, touching one another with the love of God.
Searched all over, couldn't find nobody. I looked high and low, still couldn't find nobody. Nobody great.